All right, people of the internet. Today, we're going to be deploying Ghost, right? Which is our favorite thing to deploy at this point because I got a pre-baked solution for it. Uh, and we're going to be using Octahe to deploy it. It's going to be deployed in a production-like environment, which is going to be using a cloud application to provision our resources. The cloud environment is going to be fairly basic, right? It's going to have a webhead, a database node, and a bastion node. The bastion node will have a provider network on it with a static IP address. We can assume that this is like a VPN tunnel straight into the environment. The webhead will have a floating IP on it. Again, we can assume that this is kind of like the IP address you would put on a load balancer in your cloud environment. To simulate and show all of this, I actually am going to be using a cloud environment. In this case, it'll be Red Hat OpenStack 16. So I've got my strawberry bubbly, I've got my blackjack gum, and I got a feeling there's some nerdy going down today. So let's get into it. So let's go over our cloud environment. Like I said, fairly basic, but I'm going to log into it, kind of give you a rundown of how it's all wired together, and then I'm going to rebuild everything just to prove that we're starting from zero starting point. So here we are, login page to our handy dandy little cloud environment. Now, the cloud environment here, like I said, I'm using is a Red Hat OpenStack platform. This could very well be Amazon AWS, Azure, IBM Cloud, take your pick cloud, a local VM running on libvirt. It really doesn't matter. In my case, I'm using a cloud environment, and I'm doing so because most people who are going to be leveraging this software are probably going to be doing so in a cloud environment similar to what's going on here. So here we go. Here's my cloud, fairly basic, fairly small. Uh, here's my instances showing the 3 nodes which have already been pre-provisioned running CentOS 8. And here's my infrastructure. I've got 3 VMs provisioned. The first one is a bastion node. It's got a flat network and then an IP on the internal network. The database node is on the internal network, and the webhead is on the internal network and has a floating IP assigned to it. The floating IP, in this case, 172.16.26.93, is going to be our ingress point to get to the web application once it's all stood up. Right. So the internal network is all of our east-west traffic, and the flat network is our north-south. Just to kind of give a little bit better visual representation of what's going on with the network, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the network topology. All right, here's the network itself. This is our flat network. This is our router. The router in this case joins the flat network and the internal network, giving us a NATed traffic. All right, and then here's our database node. This is the web node, and this is the bastion server, which again you can see the flat network and then the internal network on that. So let's go ahead and pop back over into our infrastructure, and I'll start rebuilding everything just so we can show that I'm starting from VMs that are pristine, right? Within our little cloud infrastructure, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, rebuild. And this is going to nuke our environment from orbit, right? We're going to build it from a brand new image and let it do its thing. The IP space will stay the same, which is why I'm rebuilding it instead of deleting it and provisioning new ones. But the addresses themselves, or the VMs themselves, will be brand new. I'll rebuild this guy. All right, and we'll rebuild this last one. Now, while that's rebuilding, I'm going to go ahead and pop over into the Octahe Solutions repo, which is a new repository that I was just recently created that contains a whole bunch of already made solutions that use Octahe. Now, Octahe, like I kind of talked about in the very first video, is a deployment engine which uses the container file for It's instruction set. The container file is effectively the DSL for Octave. Now, within the solutions repository, I've got a demo target file, which is exactly what we covered during our initial live Twitch stream, which went off like a well, you can watch it. It was good in its own right. But anyways, this is the demo thing that we did during the live Twitch stream. And then I've got a whole bunch of new solutions. The solutions themselves are kind of separated based on applications, app environment, KVM, OpenStack specific things, services, and systems. Application environments being, in my case right now, NodeJS, Swift, and Yarn. Um, Largely because not my demonstration applications that I'm going to be deploying here in just a few minutes happen to be Node based. So anyways, lots of pretty cool things here to talk about. The README goes into all of the different solutions, what they do, how they do it, what the themes are, etc. Check it out, right? But I mean, the long and the short is that each one of these applications, each one of these system and target files, etc., are literally nothing more than a container file. I mean, and a fairly simple container file at that. The entire point of this application is to allow developers to provision applications faster using a DSL they are already using all the time. Now, with Octa, you'll be able to take your container and deploy it to bare metal. So for me, the container file as a DSL makes a ton of sense because most people are already writing their software for container native applications. If you get into a situation where you're deploying container native applications and you need it to grow and or have more oomph, more horsepower, more capability, or you just don't want to deploy it in a container anymore, you could take that container file and deploy it straight to bare metal or a VM using Octave. So, like I said, it's a simple DSL, and I find it to be incredibly compelling. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you're here for the beer. I don't know. Leave a comment. Love to hear from you. But anyways, here's the container file. Here's what I'm working with. All right, let's pop back over into our cloud environment. We're all up and running. I'm going to go ahead and switch over into my terminal, and we'll start pinging a few things, making sure everything's up, and just kind of go prove that there's nothing running inside of our newly rebuilt VM environment. All right. Well, that was a terrible transition. Let's go ahead and clear that screen. But within the screen itself, we're going to go ahead and ping our server. This is our Bastion node, remember, right? So we can go ahead and log into that guy and see that what's going on here. It's been up for about 5 minutes because we just rebuilt it. There's nothing in the history, there's nothing to see, there's nothing to do. So let's go ahead and pop over into one of our other nodes. Yep. I got a database node. It's up. It's running. And there's nothing here. We'll go ahead and pop over into our web node. Blah, I can't type. But here we are, same thing as everything else. It's been up for 4 minutes because it was the last one that we rebuilt. So, let's clear our screen, pop back. Let's go into our Octave solutions. Within the Octave solutions, like I said, there's a bunch of pre-built stuff. One of the things that's in there actually is a scripts repository. And I've kind of already baked the script itself that we're going to run. And like I said, we're going to do everything in 3 commands. And those 3 commands are in the script. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Scripts, deploy, prod, ghost. Whoa, it's big. I wonder if we can minimize this a little bit. Well, not really. But you get the point. here it is. This is the 3 commands that are being run. I've got deploy against 3 targets, setting up the base operating system. I've got deploy setting up a database. And I've got deploy installing NodeJS, installing NGINX, and installing Ghost. And that's it. It's that simple. So we're going to go ahead and give our script the information it needs, right? User CentOS, server 1, which is our Bastion node, server 2, which is our database node, and server 3, which is our webhead. And then we're going to run the script. Pretty easy. This is going to take about 5 minutes to do its magic. So, like I said, the very first thing it does is going to go to all 3 nodes and install our basic packages and do our basic operating system setup. In this case, it's effectively just setting up a firewall. That's done. Now it's going to go ahead and install MariaDB and all of its dependencies. While this is going on, let's go ahead and log back into our nodes here, and we can take a look at what's going on, right? MariaDB is being installed. I'm in the wrong node. There we go. So we can see MariaDB is being installed. Octahe's doing its thing. Looking pretty good so far. Let's pop back over here. We can just sit here and watch the dots fly by. You know, while this is doing its thing, nobody likes watching a terminal with dots flying by. I'm going to go ahead and pop back into Chrome and show you what the script is doing, because the script is in the solutions repo as well. And within that, I should be able to show you a little bit easier about how it's all working. So in the solutions repo, back in the scripts, deploy prod, we've got, this is a little easier, a little nicer to digest than the overly large terminal output. But here we go. We've got Octahe deploy and our 3 targets. What's cool here is that the first node is our Bastion node, and I named it Bastion 1, right? I did that because it makes it easier and friendly to reference later. Cool. So as I kind of scroll down here, I've got Bastion 1 being my first node that I'm going to deal with. And then I've got via Bastion 1 later. Now, the reason that that's cool is because this gives me the ability to go ahead and proxy my commands through that Bastion node using the via argument. Very simple argument. In this case, it's targets, right? These are nested arguments, which you can actually put into the container file if you want, but we're doing it on the command line, so I'm just kind of laying it all out how it all works. But here we are. We're escalating our privileges. We are preserving our environment, and we're proxying our commands through the Bastion. Now you'll notice here that on line 16, I just have via Bastion 1. I don't have user, at, or host, or port, or anything. And the reason that works is because we already have a control master set up for that in the first command. And because Octahe uses naming that is consistent and hashes all of that to to obscure what's going on within the environment, I can actually just use the name again, and it will continue to work until that socket is closed. So that's pretty neat. Coming down again, third command deploys Ghost, sets some host and server information that we know from environment variables, and that runs our 3 container files, our target files in our case. Let's go ahead and pop back over into our terminal and watch our progress. Looks like we're installing NodeJS on our webhead. We can see MySQL is running. Ta-da! All right, looking good. Let's pop back over, watch this kind of go. It's installing NGINX. Almost done. Let's go ahead and log back into our webhead, which we logged into first. Here we can see we're doing some SELinux bits because we're running CentOS 8 and our container file is set up for CentOS 8, allowing SELinux to remain enforcing. We kind of want to see what we're doing over here. We can. Lots of bits flying around. All right. We're nearing the end here. Ghost is getting set up. We're going to go ahead and install npm latest ghost, set up a new ghost application, migrate the database, and start everything all up. Again, there it is. We can see new npm bits flying by. Remember, we're doing this all in real time. And we're doing it in real time on an OpenStack cluster running on old AMD Opteron hardware sitting in a closet about 25 feet over there. So, you know, my mileage may vary, but it's getting there, and it's working pretty well. All right, we can see that it's installing the Ghost application under the Ghost user. It's going to take just a minute more, and it'll be done. So let's go ahead and flip over, and I will show you that. We'll escalate our privileges here, and take a look at var dub, and we see our domain. This is what we're setting up right now. Here's our application being installed. We can again see more of everything being installed in the tree that Octahe is running right now. Almost finished. Sure does take a while to install Ghost. All right, and we're done. I'm going to go ahead and flip back over and take a look at what's going on within the Ghost webhead here. Ghost looks like a Ghost app. We can actually go ahead and take a look at what Octahe set up to run Ghost for that entry point using some systemg cgls dash unit slice. We can see our Octahe service. Looks like it's running. Let's go ahead and flip over into some Chrome. Hit that floating IP address, right? Our public ingress IP address, and see if we can get to the default website. Looks like NGINX is installed. Let's go ahead and take a look at that ghost domain that was set up, right? Ghost.localdomain. It works. Let's go log in. It's not admin, it's ghost. And this is going to bring us into our create account because we are the first person. And we're in. Let's go ahead and do a quick little recap. Here we are. I've got Ghost, which is deployed via Octahe. It was deployed via Octahe on 3 servers, or using 3 servers. A Bastion node, a database node, and a webhead. Octahe, through its config, allowed us to transport from the Bastion server to the webhead to the database node using some SSH tomfoolery to make it all happen. It used the container file DSL, which we talked about using our solutions, to go ahead and deploy Ghost as an application. Right? Here's our container file for Ghost, showing everything that I did and how I did it. There's our entry point, which was converted into the Octahe service file, right? Which we'll go ahead and flip back over into our terminal to show again, which is its own systemd unit and is isolated based on the user that created it. So we should be able to deploy this again on another application for a different domain if we wanted to on the same server. But I'm going to leave that for a video of another day. So I hope you like this video. It's simple, it's easy to set up, it was easy to show, it was easy to do, it's easy to reproduce, and it did it in an environment that would be similar to what you would expect in a cloud environment, whether you're using OpenStack, Amazon, Google Cloud, IBM Cloud, Vultr, Packet House, I don't care. In my case, I used OpenStack. OpenStack allowed me to set up my 3 servers, allowed me to create my network topology, which mimics a production-like environment, production-like network, right? Where I've got my provider network on my Bastion node or VPN, right? I've got my floating IP address on my webhead or load balancer in some cases. And I've got an internal network which protects everything away from the edge, right? So OpenStack made this simple for me here locally for this demonstration. But like I said, it has nothing to do with OpenStack. If you were using Take Your Pick Cloud or Cloud Azure, you would do the same thing. Provision your resources, make sure your networks are set up, probably set up a load balancer, make sure all of that was wired up, and then deploy your application. Simple, easy. And Octahe made it really simple to go ahead and deploy the application on a 3-node environment without actually exposing any of the 3 nodes or being within the environment itself. It's pretty important to touch on here that I provisioned this application on my resources, which are locked behind an address space that I don't have access to, right? This 10 address space from my workstation is inaccessible, which is proven here by my working environment. Back on my node, I can't get to these hosts. I can get to the floating IP address. I can get to the provider network address, but I cannot get to that 10 dot space. There's no route to that on my network. Right? Octahe did its job and got out of the way. Now we're on to, to building content and running our application, serving our end users. I hope you like this video. If you don't, well, I don't know what to tell you. But if you do, share it with the other nerds. And if you have questions, leave a comment. I would love to interact with you, learn what you're trying to solve, see how Octahe can solve problems for you, and collaborate. Right? Check out the GitHub. There's going to be links in the description below. that's all I got for today. I'm looking forward to making more content. Like I said, if you have questions, comments, or would like to see anything, please let me know. Until next time.